All right, so picture this with me. The Antarctic. Penguins, icebergs, the whole frozen deal. Now imagine that as like the next big oil rush. Kind of wild, right?
It is pretty wild when you put it like that.
Well, that's what we're digging into today with this report we've got. It's called La Oligarquía Energética tras el Petróleo Antártico Argentino.
Yeah, that title definitely grabs your attention.
No kidding. So this report, it dives into all the stuff that could happen if, they actually find a bunch of oil in the Antarctic,
Right.
especially what it would mean for Argentina.
Right, right.
And the thing that really jumped out at me, this whole thing about Russia finding this massive, and I mean massive oil reserve.
I saw that. 511 billion barrels, right?
Yeah, 511 billion, like more than double what Saudi Arabia has.
Crazy, right. It
Yeah.
really makes you rethink that whole peak oil idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with that, peak oil is this idea that at some point we're going to hit a maximum in global oil production, and then it's all downhill from there. But if this Russian discovery is as big as they say it is...
It throws a wrench in the whole thing.
Exactly. And to make it even more interesting, this discovery is smack dab in the middle of the British claims sector of the Antarctic.
Oh, yeah. Adding a whole other layer of complexity to this.
Big time. Suddenly, we're not just talking about oil anymore. This is about who has the power, who controls this whole region. It's geopolitical chess,
Definitely. And Argentina is right in the thick of it.
Talk about being caught in the middle, right?
No kidding. They've got their own claims in the Antarctic, but now they've got to decide, do they side with the West? Maybe get a piece of that oil action, but then at what cost? Do they become totally dependent on these other countries,
Sacrificing their own energy independence for a slice of the pie.
Exactly.
And that's what it really boils down to for Argentina, isn't it? It's about their energy future.
Absolutely. And this report really drives home how this whole Antarctic situation, it ties into this larger struggle that Argentina has had. The struggle for energy sovereignty. They've always had these challenges when it comes to managing their own resources, right?
For sure. So before we get too deep into all of that, let's take a look at some of the other big players on this Antarctic chessboard.
It really is like some high-stakes game when you think about it.
Totally. You've got Russia over there playing it cool, acting like this whole massive oil discovery is,
Just science, nothing to see here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you've got the UK and the US.
Oh, yeah. They see a chance to rewrite the rules of the game.
The Antarctic Treaty System, you mean?
Exactly. Right now, it works on consensus, which gives a country like Argentina,
A real voice at the table.
right, a real say in things. But the US and the UK, they're pushing for majority rule.
Which, let's be real, totally benefits them.
Oh, absolutely. The report calls them out on it, basically saying, hey, is this really about cooperation, or are you just trying to grab power?
And of course, we can't forget about China and all of this.
Right. They're quietly building their presence down there.
New research stations, more investment, the whole 9 yards.
They're playing the long game, that's for sure. But we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle if we don't talk about the environmental impact.
Yeah, the report really emphasizes how fragile the Antarctic is.
One of the most pristine ecosystems on Earth, and we're talking about drilling for oil there.
Oil spills, damage to wildlife, not to mention speeding up climate change, which is already messing with the polar regions.
It makes you wonder, is it worth the risk? Even if it means more energy security, is it worth trashing the planet? Especially with all the talk about switching to renewables.
Right, is this oil discovery going to slow down the move to cleaner energy? It's like we're always stuck between short-term gain and,
The long-term health of the planet.
Exactly. But let's bring it back to Argentina. This report doesn't just talk about the big picture. It really digs into Argentina's own internal struggles.
Yeah. They've got a long and complicated history with their energy sector.
It's not just about what's happening on the global stage. It's about what's going on inside Argentina, too.
Right. These internal issues could really make or break how they deal with this whole Antarctic oil thing.
The report talks about their history with energy monopolies, corruption in the industry, you name it.
All these things that could really make it hard for Argentina to take advantage of this oil discovery.
Even if they do manage to stake their claim, they might not even be able to benefit from it.
It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet while the whole house is flooding, And then there's the Oligarquía Energética that the report keeps mentioning.
The energy elite, right. This powerful group that basically controls Argentina's energy policy.
Exactly. And it's not just that they benefit from the current system, they actively fight to keep it that way.
They don't want things to change.
Not one bit. The report gives this example of how they shut down attempts to invest in renewables.
Because it would threaten their control.
Exactly. They'd rather hold on to their power than, secure a sustainable energy future for Argentina.
So even if Argentina does get access to this Antarctic oil, this Oligarquía Energética could stand in the way of them actually benefiting from it.
They could be a major roadblock, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, right. The report does say this could be a huge opportunity for Argentina.
They could become less reliant on other countries for energy, maybe even start exporting oil themselves.
A glimmer of hope in all of this.
Right. But it all depends on whether they can deal with these internal issues, navigate the geopolitical minefield,
and make sure that any potential oil exploitation is done responsibly.
Which brings us to the big question, right? What does all of this actually mean?
So it's like, we've found this potential gold mine of energy, but we've also found a whole bunch of red flags.
Right. It makes you wonder, are we looking at another resource curse situation here?
Totally.
Can Argentina, or any country for that matter, really exploit resources in a place like the Antarctic? Ethically? Responsibly?
Especially given, how fragile it is, all the competing interests.
The report makes it clear this isn't some hypothetical problem. History is full of examples of resource booms that just,
benefit a select few.
Exactly. Leaving behind environmental disasters and social unrest.
Yeah, it's a pretty depressing pattern. And even if Argentina manages to overcome all these hurdles we've talked about,
the internal struggles, the geopolitical maneuvering,
right, even then, can we be sure that this oil wealth, if it happens, would actually help the average Argentinian?
Or will it just make the Oligarquía Energética even more powerful, like the report suggests?
That's what I'm wondering.
It's a huge concern. It all comes down to transparency, accountability.
Making sure the profits actually benefit everyone.
Right, sustainable development, not just lining the pockets of a few elites. And then there's the bigger question of, what happens globally if this Antarctic oil actually becomes available?
Right. How does that impact the whole energy market?
Could it actually slow down the move to renewable energy? Which is, what we should be focusing on.
It's like we're at this crossroads. One path leads towards cooperation, sustainability.
The other path is, well, it's the same old story. Competition, conflict, environmental damage.
And the decisions made about this Antarctic oil, they could determine which path we end up on.
That's what makes this report so important, I think. It's not just presenting information. It's a call to action.
It's like, wake up, people. This is serious stuff.
Exactly. We have to think about the connections between geopolitics, economics, the environment.
And make smart choices about the kind of future we want.
Because the future of the Antarctic, maybe even the planet, depends on it.
It's been a pretty intense deep dive. So for everyone listening, here's something to think about. What would you do if you were in Argentina's position? How would you balance those potential economic benefits with the environmental risks?
Could you ensure global cooperation, prevent things from spiraling out of control?
It's a tough question with no easy answers, but it's a question we all need to grapple with as we navigate this,
Increasingly complex world.
Exactly. This has been a deep dive into the world of Antarctic oil, looking at the geopolitics, the economics, the environmental concerns, the whole shebang. We'll be back next time with another deep dive. Until then, keep asking those tough questions.